You are listening to No PC Allowed, aka No Political Correctness Allowed, and I am Mac Iverson. What's next for California after all these fires in the age of Trump? The fifth largest economy in the world, California, is a mess. We all know it, and we know why it's a mess, or we should. It's a mess because it keeps following the path of least resistance, which is crappy leaders crapping all over the Golden State. But as President Trump has announced, the United States, which does not exclude California, will now be entering into a new golden age. The Golden State will have a chance once again to become truly golden. In the following moments, we will examine what's in store for California. As the saying goes, as California goes, so goes the rest of America. First of all, what is Governor Gavin Newsom doing? A more important question is, what has he not been doing and why not? For obvious political reasons, Newsom is trying to create a $50 million fund to prevent Trump from getting rid of sex and drug trafficking gang members and illegal aliens from the state. This is pure money laundering, because this includes legal aid for all these illegals to remain there so as to create the permanent ghettoization of all California into a third world hellhole, and also to pour money into the pockets of all his lawyer buddies and biggest donors. A smattering of rich over here, everybody else stand over there and face the corner. Newsom wants us either poor or struggling to keep from becoming poor. That's the MO of every tin-pot dictator throughout world history, in order to maintain a permanent hold on power. You can't fight the government if you're struggling to put food on the table. The focus of California is basically twofold. Number one, it's about protecting the environment, so they say. Number two, it's about DEI, or as I more accurately call it, DIE, which stands for Diversity, Inclusion, and Equity, all nonsense BS Marxist terminology. We're talking about water, so before we go any further, what is the dictionary definition of a dike? Why? What did you think I meant? A dike is a long wall or embankment built to prevent flooding. Therefore, a dike won't work unless there is water. With no water, there's not even a need for a dike. There was very little water available to fight the LA fires. Incidentally, there are 3 lesbian fire chiefs in the LAFD. Oddly enough, they're all named Kristen. I mention this because we're talking about dikes, after all. Again, dikes don't work unless there's water. There was very little water on that fateful day of January 7th. So those DIE-hired dikes can't control water either, because there was very little water when the spigots were turned on. What a profoundly accurate metaphor. It's like God is throwing back his mighty head and laughing at these sad, pathetic, lazy DIE-hired dike clowns. Now, many will claim that the fires weren't really their fault, but I hope and pray that we all know that DIE means that basic competence is way down the list of job qualifications, and that is extremely deadly in such a life-and-death profession. One of the 3 Kristens, they all look the same to me, said that when the fire department comes to your home, you will want someone who looks like you. In her case, I guess that means freakishly mannish and ugly. Yeah, no, I think I prefer to want someone who can actually do his job and easily pull me out of a burning building. That's far more important than having someone who is off the charts good-looking pounding on my door. You know, someone who looks like me. Have you seen my cartoon? In case you haven't, check me out. I'm smoking hot. No pun intended. Before we go any further, let's stop and answer a question that is just begging to be asked. Why is it okay to call lesbians queers but not dykes? In what universe does that make any sense at all? If the rules these PC woke a-holes dream up out of their empty little craniums makes zero sense, then why the hell should we be shivering in our sissy boots over what these flaming stupid-ass people have to say when they're judging us? I'll tell you what it all means. Speech control means thought control, and this is especially powerful if they can get you to obey nonsense speech commands. If they can intimidate you into doing that, getting nervous over nothing, then they can get you to do anything. Wear a useless mask and take a dangerous shot. Why? Because we say so. Communists and fascists have studied these mind control tricks for well over a century. They may seem stupid, but that's just a disguise of the woke. The woke are very deliberate in what they want, and they want pure power over you. Read the Gulag Archipelago, study history, and see for yourself. Typical of President Trump, he has used very undisguised messaging to gruesome Newsom, Trump wants two things. Number one, voter ID laws to be enforced. What does this have to do with fires? Everything, it turns out. Massive, documented voter fraud with millions of cheating illegal aliens have been driving fraudulent California elections for decades now. That leads to Trump's number two request. Cut the enviro-Nazi red tape and bring down some water to save some real human lives, not the almost totally inconsequential lives of something called a delta smelt. Fools say, well, that's not exactly how it works. You've got a gravity-based water system, and with the sheer number of fires, everyone started using water all at once. This was an unprecedented use of water. Well, just why was it unprecedented? Sure, the winds were strong, but they've had stronger winds before, and it's usually warm and dry even this time of year, but it never burned so many acres in such high population areas before. It's a miracle it didn't happen long before this. And at this stage, it could happen again later this year and again next year. In fact, all these terrorist cells from wide open borders could start setting fires on a grand scale. I always thought this would be a perfect way to create total chaos throughout all of America as an act of all-out war. Trump was in California last week. Governor Newsom's request for a federal handout puts him in an inferior negotiating position. Trump is riding high from his blitzkrieg style of pushing political momentum with a broad spectrum of executive orders ever since Inauguration Day. Trump's playing high-stakes chess with the California deep state mafia because he really wants California to become MAGA country. By the way, it's not new scum, as Trump calls him. It's same old scum, with maggots growing in it. Gruesome Newsom has no new tricks, so I prefer the more accurate moniker, Gavin Old Scum. But the enviro-Nazis and their army of lawyers controls the state. The real reason environmentalists have so much power is because of money. Those who crave power want to control the economy. Whoever has the money has the power. So economic disempowerment of the masses, aka socialism, is a key goal of these deep state actors. So it's not, oh, the poor, cute little delta smelt. Oh. Only useful idiot small bit players think that way. Besides, there is no conclusive evidence that delta smelts even need slightly brackish or briny water to live. The real issue for us appears to be an extreme lack of vital fire breaks. Brush simply needs to be pushed back from homes. In California especially, environmental groups are delaying permits, all tied up with lawsuits pretending to protect wildlife habits. Probably most important, no new reservoir construction has been made for a long time to handle Southern California's huge population. The enviro-Nazis are stopping all progress on fire safety in California. Carol Markowicz, co-author of Stolen Youth, said this, "Can you imagine if there were frequent fires in Florida and there was no water in our hydrants? Can you picture what the media would be doing to DeSantis right now? The idea that Gavin Old Scum is still the best presidential prospect for 2028 shows you just how completely and totally bought off and vapid the entire demon rat infrastructure is. Old Scum needs to take a cue from his evil twin, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, and quit. Just quit. Pack your hair gel and your hand mirror, Gavin, and leave California permanently. Don't let the screen door hit you on the way out. I hear Venezuela is wide open for shallow narcissistic tyrants. Good luck down there." To wrap up, there are not enough reservoirs in California. There are no natural gas permanent backup generators in case of power outages to fuel the water pumps. There is a war on natural gas, which is a disaster for fire safety. There is no proper weed abatement. There are no more controlled burns in the state. For example, surrounding Yosemite National Park, there are some 3 million acres full of totally dead trees everywhere. A total tinderbox. Millions of acres looking like a forest graveyard. The Air Quality Management District, AQMD, will not approve needed changes due to fake climate change. There should be 20 million Californians only with today's current water infrastructure setup, but California's population has grown to more than double, or 40 million people. So the state resorts to water rationing based on the lie of catastrophic climate change. It is a 100% total, complete, absolute scamola. Just a ready-made excuse to avoid out-of-control lawsuits. So what if 0.04% of the atmosphere is carbon dioxide? There is no proven negative side effects from a very slight bump. Weather moves in 32-year cycles. There is nothing threatening planet Earth climate-wise. What valued critters hide in suburban LA ditches? With massive fires, you can't protect any species by enviro-Nazi standards. How many localized species were just suddenly burnt to a crisp? all coming from their inaction and their rules. If 16 fish swim through the California Delta in a year, the water pumps have to legally be shut down. This has been going on since 1982 because the water Nazi lawyers are eager to file a new lawsuit every time California tries to get real with serious water policy reform. The legal profession has so far guaranteed that none of the bureaucratic red tape in California ever gets cleared up. Gavin Oldscum loves this because more money goes back to his donors. Fire safety doesn't really benefit them that much. With no infrastructure modifications, there's just restrictions on water usage. There's a war with green grass, a war with swimming pools, a war on drinking water. Why all the focus on water? Because water is a life source. A government that can control the life necessities of food and water can eventually achieve total power over you. The idea is to report your neighbor, to turn Californians against each other, because if they fight each other, they won't have time to fight the real enemy, which is the California and local governments. This is all stolen from Mao Zedong, aka Mouse Dung. These are his tactics of classic class warfare, from his great leap backward on how to destroy small businesses and enslave innocent citizens. California is plagued with no reliable water or energy and consistent power outages. These are all simply the tools of third-world despots like Gavin Oldscum to control you and to gain more and more undeserved power for himself and his cronies. The ultimate point is to debase humanity so that these power brokers no longer have any enemies or competitors. It is greed run completely amok. Politics is downstream from culture. So this is what happens when churches serve themselves, not Christ. That's when parishioners as well become needy, greedy, and self-centered, because this is the default position of our fallen human nature. Studies show that tangible benefits that are clearly explained to the public equals compliance from taxpayers. So, there's no real problem except public ignorance. Knowledge of all these nefarious players will quickly drain the swamp. We stopped building infrastructure in California way back in 1973. Indian reservations can build what they need for themselves because there are no state restrictions. Why? Because they're oppressed. Never mind that many receive massive monthly welfare checks that far exceeds many regular citizens' paychecks for the entire year. This is fascinating. The seed money for California projects, like all the state colleges, the Interstate Highway, and State Water Project, all came from offshore oil drilling. So now the money must come from elsewhere, but it's not readily forthcoming. Therefore, there have been no more infrastructure improvements. Up till now, the deep state has deep-sixed all of this. Again, it's the lawyers slowing to a tortoise crawl all social and economic progress. This is what you call the state-sponsored suicide of the state of California. Action step. Seek alternative sources of information. Read the Epoch Times newspaper, that's EPOCH Times. Also read the New American Magazine. Get involved and stay involved. You've been listening to No PC Allowed. I am Mac Iverson. We will meet again next week and every week.